Hi, everyone. I'm Brooks Rayford, President and CEO of the North Carolina Technology Association, or NC Tech. Thanks for joining us for this edition of NC Tech Chats. These are opportunities to visit with interesting people and interesting organizations for about a 15-minute discussion about topics relevant to them and of interest to our broad audience. So we hope you enjoy this series. First, I should say that NC Tech, as its name implies, is a statewide organization. So while certainly larger metros are heavily represented within our membership, we have pockets of strength in other places of the state besides, say, the Triangle or Charlotte. And one of those is the Wilmington area. Wilmington's gotten a lot of attention lately, and we're going to be talking about that a little bit today. And I'm really pleased to have with me as my guest today, Jim Roberts. So Jim, why don't you say a word of hello and introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Jim Roberts, the founder of the Network for Entrepreneurs in Wilmington and the Whale Angel Network and several other committees that I serve on. And I'm happy to be here with you and NC Tech today.
Great. Well, thank you for making the time to do it. You know, earlier this month, Wilmington was in the news for being the #1 startup ecosystem in America for cities of its size, which for reference is 100,000 to 300,000 citizens. And #2 in the world. So you've been involved, as you noted, for a long time in building up to this level of recognition. What are the elements that you would say contribute primarily to Wilmington's strength?
Well, the first two are the entrepreneurs. Obviously, the strength of Live Oak Bank, and if we can use the branches of Live Oak Bank, meaning Encino, Aperture, and Canopy Ventures, which is the largest venture fund in the South for technology. Now it is focused on fintech, but that is a major addition to Wilmington. Also, of course, the Taylor family of companies with Untapped and National Speed and True Colors Brewing and all the great things that George and Kurt and the family are doing in Wilmington. And another major factor is, well, if I can give you a pat on the back, is the connection, what we call the coastal corridor. When Michelle Colton trusted me to put together an event for her in 2013, and we had a lunch at UNC Wilmington, and that is where you met people like Kurt Taylor, and we started bringing these organizations that were statewide organizations but didn't have a great relationship with Wilmington, and that has been a very successful two-way relationship as we invite these organizations to Wilmington. And of course, I'm bringing the Wilmington entrepreneurs to participate where the ecosystem is in Raleigh and Durham. And for example, earlier this year, we had 20 Wilmington entrepreneurs that attended the CED conference, the big investor conference. And that was a great representation of the growth of Wilmington.
Well, that's great, because you reminded me in saying that we've also seen some good representation from Wilmington and some of the startup showcase programs that we've offered. We have a couple of occasions during the year. One is the annual NC Tech conference called State of Technology in May, where we feature 6 startups who have a chance to make their pitch to a fairly large statewide audience. And then we also have top 10 startups to watch, which is a category in the NC Tech Awards. And for those watching this in the window of June the 15th to July the 15th of 2022, that's the window in which applications are accepted for the NC Tech Awards broadly. And again, one of those categories is dedicated to startups. So I hope that Wilmington will be well represented in that mix as well. And there's a gala on November the 29th in Raleigh to celebrate and announce all those winners. So go to nctech.org/awards and check that out. You touched on this with the Taylor's reference, but there's a lot of capital in Wilmington. A lot of people don't know that or don't have a full understanding of that. Why is that? Is it because people have chosen to go there to retire, or from the area in the first place, who've done well and now are investors? What drives that?
Well, there has been a long-term Wilmington Angel Network, the Wilmington Investor Network, that's been there for over 20 years, as long as I've been doing this. There was also another angel network called the IMATH Cape Fear fund where the IMAFs are all over the Inception Micro Angel Fund. I started the Whale Angel Network in 2015, and there's also a Venture South Angel Network for post-revenue startups. Also Canopy Ventures, and also Fred Eshelman of PPD has his own venture fund for life sciences, although they're not very active locally. Obviously, Fred has had his impact. Yes, there has always been money kind of in retirement, those people moving to the coast if they can afford to live at the coast, which is no longer as cheap as it used to be.
Right.
But people have been moving from Boston or New York or, Chicago to the coast of North Carolina. It's a very pro-business state. And we're trying, with the success of Encino, Untapped, and Player Space, who have had exits, we're trying to use that as a way to get more people to participate in early stage capital.
So that's a great ecosystem of funding. That's good. You touched on a couple of the organizations that you've been personally involved in or helped create, found, lead, et cetera. So I want to ask you about two of them. You mentioned the Network for Entrepreneurs in Wilmington, or NEW, and then you also, which just had a 7th anniversary, I believe.
Yes.
And then the other is the Wilmington Angels for Local Entrepreneurs, or WHALE. You were the founding director also of UNCW's Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship. So talk about these three groups in particular that you've had a central role in developing.
So I was recruited to UNCW from the Raleigh area, where the chancellor, Gary Miller of UNCW, recruited me to open and become the first executive director of the CIE. Within 12 months of opening, we won an award from the SBA, from the White House, as one of the top 100 incubators, accelerators in the United States. And that came with a very nice grant. And that was real proof that we were doing the right things and putting the right infrastructure in place to grow an ecosystem. And I was very honored by that. No one from my family had been awarded at the White House before, so that was a pretty big deal, given my dad's a politician part-time. And so we're very proud of that growth. In 2015, I separated from the university and started an independent nonprofit called the Network for Entrepreneurs in Wilmington. And we've been growing and growing and growing. We have the highest monthly attendance of any organization for startups that I can find in the whole state of North Carolina, where we average between 115 and 155 attendees per event. That's been growing as well. We've already sold out our July 28th event a month in advance, which we're really excited about. We're hosting it at True Colors. And so those two organizations have really had an impact on, and the way that I like to say it is, we do advocacy, meaning that I participate in your committees and CED committees, NCIDEA committees. We prepare the entrepreneurs for capital. We have these monthly events. We introduce them to mentors. We've been very active with mentors just in the last 2 weeks, of some people who are coming from Raleigh that spend time at the coast, and they say, hey, who can I meet with while I'm in town? And of course, that is very valuable to our entrepreneurs, to be able to connect with Raleigh entrepreneurs. When they make the trip to the Triangle, they have people to reach out to and attend events with them. And then preparation for capital. We have a very interesting event called our Tough Love event, where if we know that our entrepreneurs are preparing for events like your startup showcase, or they're going to pitch in a pitch contest, we kind of break down their practice presentation to where they're much more prepared for maybe the questions that they're going to get from the judges on their business models and such. And so those are the 5 things that we really do on a daily basis to help our ecosystem grow. And then the Whale Angel Network was really needed because we were trying to obviously build our ecosystem, but many of our funding sources were very conservative, and they were getting deal flow from other regions. And it's very difficult for your entrepreneurs to raise capital out of town if the locals are not investing. Or you can switch it around and create a FOMO of, hey, this Wilmington entrepreneur got money from a Raleigh angel network or a Raleigh venture capitalist. Why aren't they investing locally? And you can bring that kind of FOMO, if you will, and say, hey, we got capital from Co-Founders Capital or Jurassic Capital, and why aren't you investing in us? And that's been very effective in growing our ecosystem.
That's interesting. Kind of on a related note, you may be familiar with a fairly new fund that Scott Wingo has launched, the Tweener
Right.
Fund. He began, for those who don't know, doing a list, I guess some years ago, of companies that were not exactly brand new startups, but they were still in that stage of early growth. So he calls them tweeners. And the list got very popular. And then someone said, well, why don't you create a fund that invests in these kinds of companies? So he's done that, and has, about 100 or so limited partners already, and it just launched officially January of this year. He only will focus on tech and in the triangle. So there is a geographic limit to that particular fund. I wonder if you think there's an appetite for something like that that's really focused in the region that Wilmington is in.
Well, I've been begging Scott to speak in Wilmington for 9 years now, and I thought I had him cornered for next month, but we're going to have to find another date that works in his fatherhood schedule. And by the way, Scott's new company, Spiffy, has a new franchise in Wilmington. So he has double the need to come down and visit us more at the beach, to visit his beach house. So yes, we need more capital, but we also need to work to improve our entrepreneurs. And really what we're trying to do is we're trying to retain the employees of those companies that had an exit within the last 3 years. How do we retain the Encino employees, the Live Oak employees, and the Untapped employees, and encourage them to become entrepreneurs? And we're seeing that now. We have a very exciting company called Telios, which is 3 former Live Oak Bank employees in the technology division, and they've broken out and started their own company. And we're doing everything possible to nurture that company for growth in the Wilmington market, because it is kind of an exciting Web3 technology with secure email.
That does sound interesting. We at the association have members of all types, including governments, state government agencies, local governments, counties, and cities. And I actually had a coastal county join through its economic development office. And they had an interesting reason. I was curious what would spark them to join. And it was because accelerated by COVID has been the appeal of people being able to move where they want to live and then find a way or a place to work that will let them work remotely, or perhaps have a strong enough cluster for an in-person physical presence there. And so this county felt that its best draw was talent, not necessarily economic development in the traditional sense of getting companies to move there. Right. But if they could attract talent would be, as we all know, the average wages are higher. They tend to spend in the community and so forth, and drive the overall economy. So that was their motivation, was to be plugged into the statewide technology community and be seen as a destinational place for tech talent. So thanks for that overview of the organizations that you've been associated with and are associated with. Let's wrap up with a few minutes about you. Tell us about your journey, for where you've worked, what led to the next thing, and what drew you into this type of work.
Well, I've been a member of your organization for around 20 years, or we've worked together, I would say. And I was a struggling salesperson, a relationship salesperson in selling websites in the city of Charlotte before 2000. And the prospects that I had were these young entrepreneurs who had no money, they had no capital to be able to buy the websites that I was selling. And I simply created a solution to my own problem. That's how I got into an entrepreneur support organization, was how can I create a room where an entrepreneur, a technology entrepreneur, can meet an investor, or can meet a mentor, or can meet the service provider, the lawyer, accountant, who could take care of them, but also introduce them to investors. So assuming that if I could introduce an entrepreneur to an investor, and that deal worked and the entrepreneur had capital, surely they would buy the website from me using the money that I helped introduce them to. And so that's actually how I got into this, and has been a passion of mine for the last 22 years. And as you know, I started the first tech entrepreneur support organization in Charlotte and in Asheville, and worked in this area in the Triangle with COIN, the Center of Innovation for Nanobio, and for the Department of Commerce, and now in Wilmington. And I've started 2 organizations there. So that's really how I got into this. It's really kind of a coaching, where my father was a basketball coach for 30 years, and my mother was in nonprofit most of her life. I kind of took the passion of those two, working in nonprofits and coaching entrepreneurs instead of basketball players. And that's really how I got into this, and why I'm still in it every day.
Well, it's an interesting journey for sure. And it's interesting that it all started because you had a problem you needed to solve for yourself, which is often what drives innovation in the first place.
Right.
And it's great that you've also had experience in various parts of the state. You've really coast to mountains and places in between, and have built a lot of relationships and reputation through that. And I'm sure that network helps as well. But I really appreciate, Jim, you taking the time to be with us. You've been a great partner and friend to NC Tech for a long time. And you've certainly planted a lot of seeds in places around the state, as I just noted, that have really blossomed into some strong networks and ecosystems, as we keep saying. And terrific what's happening in Wilmington. So thanks for sharing about all of that. And for those of you who are watching, you can watch this episode and others on our YouTube channel, and also on our social media platforms. You can visit our website at nctech.org, and we look forward to seeing you on our next edition. So stay tuned.